Good morning, everyone. This is Stephen Khuong here, along with Natalice and Jess. Today, we have a very special guest, Nick Salinas. In particular, there's been a lot of stuff in the news about Afghanistan and military operations, so we think that it's timely to bring in an expert in the field and have him give some insights into what's actually happening on the grounds overseas, but more importantly, how that relates to the unlikely journey for both Nick and also other entrepreneurs that might draw inspiration from Nick's experiences. So without further ado, Natalice, could you give us a great intro?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm so excited to introduce a dear friend, Major Nick Salinas, who has certainly had an unlikely journey. And in some ways, and we can talk about this later, but he and I have cultivated an unlikely but endearing friendship. Nick is an officer in the U.S. Army, having served as a special ops commander and has done several tours, including in the Middle East. After a simultaneous stint at Amazon, Nick has ventured into the entrepreneurial world in both construction and health and wellness industries. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Wow, Natalie, Steve, Jess, thanks for having me. Would hardly call myself an expert in all this. It's just the kind of the life I've been living for the past 20 years. And no, I just really appreciate it. And I love the name of your podcast because that's actually what was the catalyst for me to do some reflection of my own, which I haven't done in a very long time. So going back 20 years where my journey, I would say, actually began has been uh, beneficial for me. And I think it's actually very healthy to do that. I just haven't been doing that over the years just because you're constantly moving forward and more things are getting put on your plate, as I'm sure everybody can attest to. But this was good to be able to look back and it's almost it's weird how it's all coming together because about 20 years ago is about where Afghanistan kicked off, where we
Wow.
had 9/11 in 2001 and 8 months later, I graduated high school, and I'd say that's where my journey began.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So tell us about that.
Well, I graduated high school in 2002, so following 9/11. Prior to that, I had already been accepted to West Point, and we can rewind a little bit before that. Even since I was a kid, probably 4 years old, I knew I was going to join the military. Didn't know what capacity. I mean, I was probably going to be infantry. Every boy my age wanted to fantasize about being that GI Joe, a Green Beret, or whatever. But I just that never really popped into my mind. I just knew I wanted to serve. My whole family had been in the military, so I figured that's what I was going to do. And so we about around 2000 is when I got a little postcard in the mail for West Point, and I kind of threw it away. But I luckily, to this day, luckily, I had a mentor at school. One of the instructors I had, one of the teachers, and he was just like, "Look, just try. Why, I kind of wrote myself off. I wasn't smart enough, wasn't going to be able to get in, not competitive enough." And he said, "Look, just try. We'll put a packet in and see where that goes." And looking back now, you see how influential people can be, even when you're young and feel like you know everything, which is kind of funny because when you're the youngest and you know the least, you somehow know everything. There's still some influences that can break through the thick skulls, especially mine. So we applied. My mom helped me out. Uh, and I got a letter back and said, "Hey, you've been accepted under the condition that we think you're ready for it. We think you're the material, but we just want you to spend an extra year at the prep school, the United States Military Academy Preparatory School, which was in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey." And that's kind of a blow, especially for someone that I'm relatively successful as a young adult, whether it's in athletics or school, and to be told that you're just not smart enough to go straight into West Point was kind of a kick. But
Mm.
looking back, it was a blessing in disguise. It was one of the best years of my life, and coincidentally, that is where I met your husband, Natalie. So, and then from there is where our friendship cultivated. So that's kind of that takes you up to at least me leaving high school.
Nick, typically, for those that aren't as familiar with the progression from one stage of your military engagement to another, tell us a bit about West Point and what typically happens when folks graduate from West Point. What are the opportunities and, what path did you take at that point?
Yeah, no. I guess the appeal to me was that its pure focus is to develop leaders of character. That's everything you do, whether you're in a physics class or you're on an athletic field. Everything is about developing leaders and leaders of character. So what that ends up developing is a person that the United States Army says, I got my stamp of approval. This person graduates, they will be commissioned as a second lieutenant, and they will be leading our Army forces within months of graduating West Point. So we were still, I graduated in 2007. So that ended up being another ramp up in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we all knew there was no question in mind. We went in as one of the classes of 9/11, and we knew coming out that's exactly what we were going to go do. So there's never ever question of what am I going to do when I leave? What company am I going to go work for? Well, you're going to go work for the United States military, and you're gonna you're gonna go overseas most likely. But in what capacity? Meaning what kind of specialty? That was kind of that's something that's based off of an order of merit list, basically. So if you're the smartest guy in the class, smartest woman in the class, you get your first pick at whatever specialty you want, and you get your first pick at wherever you want to be stationed. So it
So,
pays to work hard.
so Nick, question for you. In terms of like picking a specialty, like just again, like break it down for those of us that like, I mean, I grew up right by West Point, so it's so fascinating to hear your story. Like, we would actually drive up there and like they, like they would do like the holidays and the cannons, and like I played soccer, so like we would do some, we do some tournaments up in West Point, but like it was always just this kind of like mysterious this is mysterious campus that you kind of knew like the best of the best went there. So when you talk about graduating and having your first pick and your own specialty and in terms of area, like how much control do you have? Like what does that look like, and what are the specializations that you guys get to pick?
Oh wow! I mean, like you said, there is this like mystique to that place, and it's a beautiful campus, and it's extremely depressing during the winter just because everything is gray. But it still has its beauty even during the winter time. Um, but in terms of like how much say do you have in your path to commissioning, and I'd say there actually is a lot. So if you try really hard and you're getting all the additional instruction that you need to pass your classes. And the other thing to that is that it's so humbling going there because everyone is top of their class wherever they're coming from. We've got students from other countries. We've got students from, I mean, every single state of America that are all top of their class. They're all valedictorians. They're all team captains in their athletic departments. They're the best of the best where they came from, and then you get thrown together with everyone, and you quickly realize that there are some brilliant and very athletic or very physically fit peers out there, and so it's humbling in that aspect, and at the same time, it's just it's a way to kind of respect what that institution does. So I was still kind of I was top of my class in high school, but going there, I was very middle, uh, in the middle at West Point. There's very much some smarter people ahead of me, including some of my closest friends. But those at the top get to pick whatever they want, and I still was able to get what for the most part what I thought I wanted, but that ended up molding my decisions down the road into what I end up picking as my career.
Nick, jumping forward into your career, I believe you were in special ops. You were part of the Green Berets. Is that correct?
I am. I'm actually still a uniformed service member right now. So once we got kind of, I guess at some point we're going to get into Afghanistan. That's kind of the elephant in the room right now. There's only so much I'll probably end up talking about it just because of my position, but I can give you some kind of like insights on what we've seen over the last 20 years and wish I could tell you what's going to happen going forward, but I can't. But yeah, no, I've been a Green Beret since 2012. I started the process in 2009, And so from 2009 to 2012 is how long it took me to earn my Green Beret.
For those of us that aren't as familiar, give us some insight. What is a Green Beret? What do y'all do? And what is expected of you guys on the battlefield?
So Green Berets are the Army-specific Special Operations Forces. And we have got a couple other. We've got, you've got your Rangers, you've got your 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. So we've got some different special operations units in the United States Army, but our Green Berets are specific to Army. And you'll hear it get thrown around all the time. Where like, oh, the Special Forces went in and did this. Well, it was SEALs. It's only, that only describes one particular unit. Now, when we're talking special operations forces, that is pretty much like the umbrella term for all services. So Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, those are all of those branches have special operations.
I think we hear Navy SEALs getting thrown out there a lot because so many movies are creating their context around the SEALs. Tell us a bit about the Green Berets. What do you guys specialize in?
Ours is irregular warfare. So we like to, one of our mottos is we're the quiet professionals. So that's probably why you won't hear much about what we do. But we're at the end of the day, we're force multipliers. We're a very small team that can go anywhere in the world, oftentimes with little or no oversight or direct support. And we work with indigenous personnel, and we train with them. We build relationships. These leaders of the teams are seen as soldier diplomats because they're oftentimes, I've been in a country or an area where I'm the senior, military personnel on ground dealing with, colonels of another country. And I don't want to say dealing with them, like I'm working, side by side with them, developing partnerships. So there's a lot of trust that goes into these individuals when they go overseas, and not just in combat operations, but left of combat, which is training and developing relationships. And that's why a lot of training and selection goes into these individuals. Well, a lot of the other special operations in the other branches kind of mirror that a little bit. I'll speak specifically for special forces.
Nick, thanks for the clarification on that. That was really brilliant how you just broke that down. I think for many of us, when we think about special ops, we think they're all part of the same group. But it sounds like to me, depending on the division of the military that they're from, there are various special ops. And it sounds like the Green Beret, you guys are, just as you explained it, the quiet professionals. So tell us a bit about context. When you guys were deployed to the Middle East, can you tell us maybe like in general, without going into too much detail, what were your specific objectives and how were you guys able to meet those objectives?
There's hundreds of different objectives we can do just based off of our mission sets. But at least for my experiences, it has been working. It's been by, with, and through your partner force, that host nation force. If you as a soldier are doing all the work, you're not doing your job. So you've got to be able to train, equip, and employ these host nation forces to be able to hold down the objectives of national objectives in that country. And that's kind of what we do. And even when it's not combat, that's what we're doing is we're constantly working with partner forces all over the world. And then sometimes, as we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan, sometimes they're very much non-trained forces or non-military type forces. They could just be, the guys that the first Green Berets in Afghanistan linked up with, which were just farmers. They were villagers. They were people that they linked up with and trained and went into battle with them against the Taliban. And then over time, you can develop a true standing military in those areas. But most of the time, these countries already have a standing military, and that's who we work with. And if we're doing our job right, in the long run, it'll prevent conflict.
I'm just so curious. So like given all the preparation, right? Like what for you was like the most surprising, like going to this elite school and then like boots on the ground, like going into all these different incredibly challenging high stakes environment. Like for you, like what was the most surprising moving, out of the academia side and training side into like real world scenarios?
I guess just that nothing was really surprising. It was more of just you quickly learn how much you don't know, and that it just takes time and experience, and not to be afraid to take on these experiences is kind of where I learn. And the more experiences you have, the more you're going to be able to react better. You're going to have special type of, you're going to have information that you didn't have before that'll feed into a decision that you make down the road. Um, and I guess for me, I was just always so excited to do this. I felt I was born to do this. So anytime I was called up or got the notification that I was deploying or I'd be doing a certain type of mission or anything, I was almost like ignorance is bliss. I just never even thought of that there was another option to it. I just would say, okay, sign me up, let's go. And I think that's also just I was young and eager to get out there to do the job that I was, being trained to do at West Point for 4 to 5 years, and that's kind of why I've like blinked my eyes, and it's been 20 years. And Annalise and you guys come to me and say, hey, what's your journey look like? And it's very surprising that's. I mean, in my mind, I'm not special. I know a lot of people that I work with that are much more impressive than I am, but I appreciate, me having to look back and seeing that. So that's actually a really good question, Jess. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nick, can you tell us about your first deployment and like what, what was the most challenging thing about it? And maybe like what did you learn either in that first deployment or over time?
That first deployment would have been me as a platoon leader to Baghdad, Iraq. We were all over that area for a while. I guess the challenges were becoming more of a subject matter expert in that area than I was. You just kind of think that you show up and everyone just feeds you the information, or you're gonna, someone's gonna tell you exactly what to do, and it wasn't always like that. And that's kind of, I guess that's that taste or flavor of having to be a self starter is what ended up making me branch off to special operations, special forces. But you're having to do the due diligence of doing your own research in the area that you're in and learning the people that you're working with, and not just being that ugly American that comes in and says, oh, everybody needs to form to who I am. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a very good. I mean, I think I was there for 12 months on my first deployment.
Hmm.
And there's my counterparts and people I've worked with over the last 20 years that have gone. I mean, they've spent most of their adult life deployed, and I've done a few deployments, but nothing compared to some of the counterparts I've worked with. So I'm thankful in that aspect.
Yeah.
Nick, tell us a little bit about the other side of your life. We know that you're an entrepreneur as well. So tell us some of the businesses that you've started, some of your aspirations moving forward.
Yeah, I guess well, I'll preface it with this. I do not have a business background. I actually got my master's in public service and administration at A&M. So I guess seeing the public side really made me say, okay, I don't want to go that route. Like I want to stay more in the private sector and develop my own path, and maybe one day be my own boss. And so I took some of those skills that I've learned over the few years as a Green Beret and said, well, if I can do it there, I can do it in other aspects. And for me, it's just been, if you like solving problems, you can get into business, right? You're gonna learn the hard way in a lot of areas, just because I don't have a lot of the embedded education, that higher education for the business. But I've got a thick skull, so I'm a hard learner. I've always been that way. But I think the theme that you'll find is that I don't really have a theme behind what I like. It's more of a problem. So my very first business that I started with my dad was a concrete ready mix business in New Mexico. So we've been hitting that pretty hard. We've been very fortunate to have a very successful business even during COVID. But you asked me, what do I know about concrete? Really nothing. My dad knows all that stuff, but he came to me and said, hey, I got this idea. And I stewed over it for a little bit. And I, once he came to me, I started noticing a lot of concrete trucks on the road, and I would never notice them before. And I noticed, how many I saw day to day, and so I saw opportunity there. That's really what sparked my interest in it. So I came to him and I said, okay, let's do this. Let's start planning it out. And that's essentially what I've been my entire career, has been a planner. I'm an operations officer, and I'm a planner. I take every element of a plan, and the idea is you meld it all together. So we did that, and we launched, or we put a huge concrete batch plant on about 60 acres in the desert of New Mexico, and now we run our trucks out of there every day. And then fast forward from there, I got a side project right now where I'm launching a food truck in just north of Austin, kind of the
How
home
fun.
of food trucks. Yeah.
What kind of
So that's
food?
been, it's actually gourmet style, deli style sandwiches.
Nice.
And it's called South by Sandwich.
I
Cute.
love it.
So yeah, we're launching that in the next few months. I got my partner is going to kind of run it and everything. I'm just there, I guess, as an investor and a decision maker here and there. But I think we're going to do pretty well in that. And then my bread and butter, my pride and joy right now is this venture that I've gotten into with my best friend, and it's again nothing that I've ever thought I would get into, but it's a mental wellness supplement brand, um, geared towards what we call the digital native, which is, there's a lot of people that are constantly staring at screens, whether it's your phone or computer screen. And it ranges anywhere from an engineer to a crypto trader to a day trader to really what our go-to-market focus is gamers and esports athletes. And what we see is that there's a huge opportunity where it's an untouched area because nobody really, thinks of gamers or esports athletes as needing supplementation, right? But I think that's what we're kind of going to try to chip away that stigma, that it's not just your marathon runners, your weightlifters, your CrossFitters that need supplements or can benefit from taking mental wellness into account. And that's kind of what our brand does. Is it's a holistic view of what, if we were to say what is either damaging to someone's mental health or what is enhancing to someone's mental health. And it usually circulates around three things: your sleep, stress, and your cognitive ability to perform. And if all those things are lined up, you can ultimately perform to your potential or beyond your potential. So that's kind of been that for, I've been working on that with our very talented team for, I'd say, almost a year. It'll be going into a year now, and hopefully we're launching in 22 with this brand.
Nick, your entrepreneurial background is really impressive. I really appreciate your ability to move from one industry to the next one. And that's not easy to do. And most people, I would imagine, wouldn't want to take that type of risk, For example, I don't mean to generalize here, but most people would typically take the path of least resistance, meaning that, hey, I've studied finance in school, so I'm going to go out there and get a finance job, and maybe in the future I might look into being an accountant or a CPA. So they're all closely related. So you've moved from the military to the cement business to the food business and now into this area of nootropics. What lessons from the military has given you the confidence to do that? And more importantly, what are three attributes that you want to point to that can help anyone in a similar position build that confidence to jump from industry to industry? And that's a loaded question there, so take your time with that.
No, Steve. I think it's actually an excellent question. And I mean, I could speak. I'd say in my experience, I know so many peers and friends and colleagues coming out of the military that have started businesses, and it kind of had me thinking. It's like, are these traits that we inherently have that have allowed them to do this, and moreover, special operations folks that come out and are entrepreneurs that are extremely successful too, and a lot of them don't even go and get their MBAs. So I kind of thought, okay, well, there's something there, and I think it's been these characteristics that you find, and again, I'll go back to just talking about special operations folks. It's these traits and characteristics that you find in probably 90% of the community that I serve in. And that's, one, it's there's no fear of failing. You understand that you're going to try something bigger than yourself, and when failure is not an option. So you're going to start it and you're going to finish it. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, probably. But I mean, and that's kind of where everyone, where soft kind of starts off with in the military is like, you know what, I'm doing this job right now, but these guys over here look like it's really hard to be. Let me go try. So I think that's number one is the fear of failure just isn't existent. Next, I think in a sense I want to say we're analytical, but not numbers analytical like the private side is. I learned that going to Amazon, thinking, oh, we do a lot of analysis, we do a lot of planning, and I was quickly humbled once I got over to Amazon a few years ago, that I didn't know how much we use numbers there just to make decisions. But I think we're analytical in environmental sense. Like there's so many aspects to an environment. There's the human environment. There's the physical environment. There's the cyber. There's so many different environments that we take into an account on let's just say like a mission or an operation, and the ability to kind of see it from big to small has been at least been beneficial for me to help start businesses, and figure out what those requirements. And then the third, I'd say, is just being is being a leader or being a person that people want to work with or want to listen to, and not listen to in meaning like, hey, I got orders to give you, but when you talk, people are naturally drawn to what you're saying. And in most cases, there's leaders out there that are developed in leaders, and they're not even trying to be. Just people are following them, like Forrest Gump going running, and he turns around and there's just a bunch of people behind him that he didn't even, that wasn't his purpose. But you've got people that are just natural leaders in that sense. And I think that's kind of what we bring out of the military, and specifically special operations, is we're able to kind of meld all that together and put it towards something that's completely different from the military. You're now looking at, it could be private or nonprofit. But again, doesn't mean we know everything. Absolutely. That's the exact opposite. And I think actually, here you go, Steve. I'll give you a fourth one. And it's the eagerness to continue to learn.
Love that.
I think that one is extremely important. And I think that's what keeps military / special operations folks keep going is that eagerness to learn.
That's awesome, Nick. I mean, now knowing everything, having, gone through so many challenges and experiences in the military, you mentioned the elephant in the room earlier. I mean, what are your thoughts on what's going on now? Is there light at the end of the tunnel here, in your opinion?
Well, Natalie, I don't want to be rude on this topic, but it's more of this would take hours and days. And not only that, we're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
So we really don't know what that light looks like, if we've even turned on that flashlight yet.
Yeah.
What I will say, and these are, I'll kind of keep it very, very broad, because again, there's a lot of what's going on right now is second and third order effects of something bigger, right? And for me, and most of the people I've worked with, and I won't speak for them, but I from being in conversations, we've known we're leaving Afghanistan for a very long time. It was just going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's the major issue here. I think it's how it was done, and all of the reverberating effects it's had based on how we did it. And so all the issues that we're running into right now stem from how we did it, not that we did it. So that'll be kind of my broad 2 cents on it. And for me as a planner, as an operations officer in the United States military, it's kind of disheartening to see us almost not do anything that we're supposed to be doing in terms of executing a time-phased approach to a huge level operation that should have been. So yeah, I guess that's my take on it right now. And
Thank
and
you
a
for
lot of it
sharing.
is still
Yeah.
unfolding. Yeah. I mean, it's still unfolding. It happened over the last week, and those second and third order effects are still yet to be seen. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Nick. I mean, this has really been so inspiring and just fascinating to just hear your trajectory. And like, I mean, I'm like a total history nerd, and like, you know, I studied politics in college, and I'm like, you know, I can't. I'm sure like we could go down different rabbit holes, and like we didn't dig too much in on like knowing whether or not you could talk about different regions, but you sound so like, you know, like focused, and you have such a good perspective on it. And, you know, I just, having you come on our show is just, I can't wait for people to hear this episode and just, yeah, like hear your experience, and then just see how you've been able to translate that into like, I mean, I'm a little bit speechless. I'm just so grateful you came on the show.
No, Jess, the pleasure's all mine. Again, this is one. It's just a very good experience for me to be able to talk to you guys, and then, and then also it's just a great thing to break up my Monday, right? Like it's not a normal Monday. I get to do a podcast, and not everybody gets to do that. And and in the special forces community, anytime you say you've done something for the first time, you owe a case of beer. So I will tell you, this has been my first podcast. So thank you guys very much for that. And I will buy the case of beer.
I hope you share with us your food truck when that's launching, so we can kind of spread the word on that.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And you know, and your other company as well. You know, like let us know, share links. We'll share links with our audience.
No, I definitely appreciate that. I think we're going to come out strong with this. It's a much different strategy than I've ever thought I'd be behind, and what it's grown into has been something just so impressive. And I mean, I'm working with 3 other brilliant minds, so it's a very, very exciting project to be on. So I will absolutely make sure that your team is well aware of what we're doing in our endeavors.
Nick, thank you so much. And I support Natalice and Jess in saying that this has been an awesome conversation. I've learned a lot personally. I know for a fact our audience is going to love the context and the content as well. So signing out on the behalf of Natalice, Jess, and Nick, this is Stephen Khuong, Unlikely Journey. Have a great day, everyone. In the meantime, peace.